What you gonna? And good evening, YouTube. It's the old soldier coming at you from Robeson County, North Carolina, just south of the little old town of Parkton. On a map of North Carolina, find Fayetteville and come south, and you will find a little bitty old town of Parkton. This is where we live, just outside of. Like I said last week, I'm trying to start doing my poetry on a live venue or on a live feed every Monday evening. I just got to start learning to schedule the time and sending out a reminder for everybody. So if you're getting this notification and you want to jump in on the side chat, go right ahead. Today's poem is called An Ode to Operation Market Garden. So before we get started on the poem, I'll give you a little history here. Operation Market Garden. It was an attempt to send a spear thrust into the heart of Germany instead of the broad front concept that Eisenhower had been using. It was a plan derived by General Bernard Montgomery of the British Army, who seemed to think that this thrust up through Holland and then over into Germany, into the Ruhr Valley, would have ended the war by Christmas of '44. It might have been right had it been successful. I think there was a lot of factors in the planning that weren't considered. Of course, you know, that's history, and we're 2020 hindsight, I guess you could call it. But long story short, there was things such as intelligence reports that the Germans had tanks there that were ignored as well. They're broken. They're just there to be fixed or repaired, that kind of thing. What it was basically an entire armored division that had got there after D-Day and the mauling they had taken through there, and well, they're actually getting quite refitted. Hey, Jamie. And anyway, long story short, the plan was for them to drop 3 airborne divisions, the largest airborne operation to date during the war, at 3 key cities to capture several key bridges across several rivers. If you don't know anything about Holland, most of Holland sits below sea level, and there's several major rivers that run through Holland out into the ocean. So they had to take Eindhoven. They had to take Nijmegen, they had to take Arnhem. Well, they dropped the 101st on Eindhoven. They dropped the 82nd in and around Nijmegen, and they dropped the British 1st Airborne on Arnhem, and then along with Polish Airborne Brigade attached to the British 1st Airborne Division would jump in a few days later. One thing the planners really failed to take into consideration, there was only one major road that ran from Belgium to the north end of Holland. And if you know anything about strategy, folks, if you've got an enemy coming up one way, what's a good way to stall them? You bomb a city and have all the people head south. So that was part of the issue. The ground force, 30 Corps from the British Army, was moving northward to link up with each airborne division in success and move on along until they got to Arnhem and then make their spear thrust in Germany. Sadly, they got as far as Nijmegen. And then they determined that Arnhem, the bridge at Arnhem was a bridge too far. And basically the British 1st Airborne Division jumped in with about 10,000 men into Arnhem, and their commanding general brought back less than 2,000 across the river. The remainder had been killed or captured. Pretty sad state of affairs. But anyway, this evening's poem, An Ode to Operation Market Garden. And it goes to read. By the way, the reason I'm selecting this one, tomorrow will be the 75th anniversary of this operation, of which my daddy was a part of with the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment. They jumped in and around Groesbeek Heights in Holland. And it goes to read, on September 17th, 1944, from airfields in England, staging fields in Belgium, Allied forces did depart. Eindhoven for the 101st, Nijmegen to the 82nd, and the prize, so they said, Arnhem to the British 1st. 30 Corps on the road, moving north at a pace, engaging the foe with powerful might. All started off well. Troopers landed intact with little opposition, or so it would seem. Then the bridge at the Somme, blown sky high. Germans they did bomb over Eindhoven, later that night. In 30 Corps, they did push, working to get a Bailey, a bridge that is, so that they might cross. And on to Nijmegen. That was what was next. They had to get there. Across the wall was the test. German units now began to cut the road between the 82nd, the 101st. 30 Corps entangled along the route across the wall, a hard-fought battle to get to Arnhem to save the lads of Jukort. Let us not forget the many of the Polish Airborne Brigade who jumped and fought and died there too. Now the timeline devastated, Johnny Frost's lads cut off, surrounded by tanks they were told that were broke, isolated and alone. Surrender he had to save his boys from slaughter that would have surely come. A bridge too far, so Browning would later say, that all those troopers died in an operation of ill fate. Lessons were learned, this is certain, that egos in politics get soldiers killed. This being said, the Dutch this day still appreciate the sacrifices of these brave souls made. Pause and reflect of the brave and the bold who lost their lives, who gave their souls, that liberty and freedom should never falter, should never fall. Remember them, one and all. That is my ode to Operation Market Garden. Like I said, the Arnhem Bridge, the British 1st Airborne Division, one of their battalions did get there, Lieutenant Colonel John Frost Battalion, and they were cut off, surrounded. They fought for longer days than they were meant to be there. And they gave it all their might, and it eventually Colonel Frost had to surrender in order to save men's lives. He had done all he could do. He was out of food, out of medical supplies, out of water, and above all else, and most importantly, he was out of ammunition. Jamie, you still there with us, brother? Got one person on tonight. Cool. But again, and it was an operation contrived by. I hope I'm not boring you, Jamie. It was an operation contrived by General Bernard Law Montgomery of the British Army, and again, it was more of his ego than it was really of tactical sound sense. Eisenhower had the right idea with a broad front push because the Germans couldn't muster forces in any one point. Hey, Mr. Langford, I appreciate you stopping in. Thank you. And again, if you didn't catch the poem, you'll be able to watch it on rerun later on. But his ego is what wrote this check, and sadly, an entire airborne division was basically mauled and literally made combat ineffective. And sadly, even the airborne commander, General Browning, he made history records that he's the one that made the comment about it being a bridge too far. He kind of washed his hands of it and indirectly kind of pointed his finger to his general, General Jukort, even though Browning he was basically commanding the entire Airborne Corps, which included 82nd, 101st. Sad part, too, after this operation would end, the 101st and 82nd would be attached basically to the British Army in that area. And so they decided to push their efforts eastward to take Antwerp, which major port, which granted, if they could get that port, they could bring in more forces, more supplies to that part. And they had to stay with them all the way through November. Patton did a lot to help out with that too, Jamie. But two of our airborne forces were left their standard infantry division, which during World War II, they were not designed to stay in theater long. Their whole thing was to take and seize real estate until a larger, more substantial force would come into play. But Montgomery got permission to utilize them, and I think it was actually through October. And they brought them back into France in November, and then, of course, the Battle of Bulge took place, which I will do a new poem for the 75th anniversary for that one as well. But and they were kind of used and abused. If you ever watched Band of Brothers and the episodes where they're in Holland, it kind of gives you an indication of how misused and misaligned that they were done, all because, well, my whole thing. Well, we didn't get all the bridges we want, but we'll change our plan. We'll move west and take the town of Antwerp and secure the lowlands, and which great. You needed another port because Cherbourg was too far away. They needed another facility to bring supplies in, but it took them too long. Montgomery was a lot like McClellan. I need to go, Mr. Langford. I really do. I have yet to go. Just time and money. But I've heard a lot about that museum. Years ago, I got to go to the monument and museum that got in Bedford, Virginia. You need to check that one out too. The National D-Day Museum. That place is phenomenal. If you ever get my way, here in Fayetteville, near Fayetteville, North Carolina, we have the Airborne Special Operations Museum in downtown Fayetteville, and then there's the 82nd Special Forces Museum on Fort Bragg, and then up in Dunn, there's the William C. Lee Museum. The father of the American Airborne Forces. But yeah, and then there's also the National Infantry Museum at Fort Benning too. But yeah, Montgomery. It was a great plan on paper. But if anybody knows anything about Murphy's Law, first contact, your plan goes to crap anyway. But again, it was political expedient. Eisenhower had to appease the British Allied support that we had by allowing Montgomery's plan to go. It was probably not one of his smartest calls, but the pressure he was receiving from Churchill and Roosevelt to let this happen. And of course, if you ever watched the movie Patton, there's a part where his army basically stalls and runs out of fuel because supplies were diverted for this. For this operation, supplies were diverted to support Montgomery's army. But again, what I guess, reading history, how it went, was the fact that the British 1st Airborne Division was just utterly mauled and left combat ineffective. I mean, there were several survivors that managed to get back across the river afterwards, and they were picked up in several large groups, that kind of thing. And hats off to the British 1st Airborne Division. They fought longer than they were designed to be there, under some very insurmountable odds, by the way. And not to mention the Polish Brigade. The Polish Brigade, when they jumped in, were hit. Their DZ had already been overrun by the Germans when they landed. They had to fight their way off of DZ. If you don't know anything about drop zones, folks, if the drop zone is seized and you're coming out the plane, coming down, you're getting shot at. And when you hit the ground, the movies depict guys holding their weapons and shooting on the way down. That's really not it's kind of hard to do because you got to try and maneuver your parachute so you can land without breaking all the bones in your body. Some of them probably did manage to get their weapons out and shoot when they were coming down. But the bottom line was many of them had to hit the ground, get out of their harness, find their weapon, put the weapon together, load it, and engage the enemy. If you're landing this open field, you're at the mercy of the enemy. But the Poles, they managed to get themselves together. They did get a small amount across the river into Arnhem to help the British, but at that point in time, it was just too late. And again, there's a lot of factors that there was a lot of factors that came into play that had an impact on that. Really did. But anyway, for my two viewers that are watching, do y'all have any additional questions? And Jamie, if you're listening, I'm hoping to get to Georgia somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I can't make no promises, but now that I've got a decent job to hold me through the fall and the winter, The wife and I, we talked about it. We're going to try and, like I said, get back that way between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Just don't know for sure yet. If I do, I will definitely be getting in touch with you so we can meet up somewhere between Calhoun and Dalton, or Calhoun and Rome, wherever we can link up at. Ellington. I'm trying to think. We're going to try, Jamie. We're going to try, my friend. Like I said, I got this new gig. School actually hired me to teach part-time. So I'm not beating up my body. Very thankful to the Lord. The more I actually get my students. I got 5 high schoolers I'll be teaching from now until about the 1st of January. And if our enrollment stays up on the college side, I may have them again in the spring semester, and that'll take me from January to May, and then I'll have the summer off. So that's going to be cool. I like being semi-retired. But my dad fought there. He jumped in around Nijmegen on this operation, a little place called Grosbeek Heights. His regiment, their DZ got overrun at least once. They had to go back and retake it. That was the other problem too. You had 3 airborne divisions, and because the bridge at the Somme got blown in Eindhoven, it delayed the entire timeline. So the 82nd had to fight in Nijmegen without heavier support. And so then there was the main road between Eindhoven and Nijmegen that kept getting cut as the Germans would get in behind the 101st. So I probably need to do a more in-depth review of the Operation Market Garden on a later video. Yeah, Jamie, I was working for an electric company over the summer, and one of my instructors called me and said, "Hey, how do you feel about teaching a class for us?" I said, "Sure." And then he called me the following week and says, "How do you feel about teaching high schoolers?" Well, I was tutoring this, the high school class in my last 2 semesters, so why not? And then next thing I know, I got hired to teach part-time. I was last week, I actually did some substitute for another instructor that was out due to illness, so it kind of knocked off the rust and the cobwebs. But yeah, I'll be this semester. I'll be instructing in DC/AC electronics, fluid power, and then I've got another one in the continuing education department that I will be teaching a print reading class for 8 weeks. So yeah, God has shined some favor upon me on that. Oh wow, 18 minutes and counting. Been on that long, and I haven't bored you 2 to death. I need to get up with you and Jamie and find out how I can invite people onto my chat or on my live stream, so I can, like if you're watching, you know. Yeah, I'm spoiled. When I quit working on Fort Bragg as a civilian, Jamie, I kind of got into a semi-retired mode, and I kind of got spoiled. I ain't gonna lie. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed working for this company over the summer, but at my age and my elements, going up and down the ladder all day long, wearing me out. Just quite truthfully, and I wanted to get on with the school when I graduated as a lab assistant. I'd have been happy with that. But then they, like I said, they contacted me and asked me if I'd be willing to teach us. Sure. Plus, I love mentoring young people. That's the other beauty of the job. So, so I might not get my heating and AC stuff done like I wanted to. That was the other drawback to it. I had to give up that class schedule in order to go in and teach. But if enrollment falters, they don't need me as a part-time instructor next fall, then I'll just sign up and take it then, and just stay committed to it. And then who knows, But like I said, I thoroughly enjoy being semi-retired. Like today, I came home at 12:30, and sat around the house and contemplating the meaning of the universe and things of that nature. Just sit down and talk with Mrs. Old Soldier and talk about things we want to do later on and places we'd like to go and see. So, but anyway. Well, Jamie, I'm going to get ready to close this thing out. StreamYard. Okay. Now, does StreamYard connect via YouTube when I fire it up? Because they said you used to be able to do it through Google Hangouts, but somebody said they're doing away with Hangouts. So, that'd have to be something I have to try. So I will. But anyway, Jamie, Mr. Langford, I appreciate you both stopping in when I did my live poetry. Like I said, this is going to be a regular thing for the Monday poetry. And I'll get in touch with you when I get it downloaded, and we'll try and do a test run maybe later this week, Jamie. But especially you, Jamie, sir, I truly appreciate your friendship, sir. It means more than you know. It really does. And it's just unique that you happen to live in a part of Georgia I'm actually familiar with. So, small world at times. Small world. But y'all have a good evening. And just stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Matter of fact, tomorrow's video will probably be a continuation on Operation Market Garden, and it'll just be a little more in depth. But with that being said, I'm going to close this one out for the evening. Likewise, my brother, and I don't want to do nothing about it, brother. Don't want to do nothing about it. I'm humbled. I truly am. And hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to meet in person sometime this fall or early winter. And like I said, let me close this thing out, and because I got to go spend some quality time with Mrs. Old Soldier. Got to rub her joints. Her joints been giving her a fit with this weather about to change. So, but wait for tomorrow's video. Like I said, I'm going to expand more on Operation Market Garden, and why politics and egos get people killed. So until tomorrow, everybody, God bless. Take care. It's the Old Soldier out.